Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program, we have Johnny A. I had a chance to chat with Johnny A about his storied career over the years. We got into so much, including his signature guitar that he has, and his Just Me and My Guitars tour, speaking through his guitars. A lot of it comes back to guitars, like I say, as well as his passion for the Beatles and so much more. We'll get into that in just a bit. It looks like I'm sweating a little bit for those that are watching on YouTube. Yeah, I don't have a makeup department. I'm sorry. It is like 107 right now when I'm recording this, and almost 8 o'clock at night, and it's gross where I live. Even though I have the AC on and set to like 75, I think, but it's still pretty gnarly. So we're gonna push forward and do the best we can with what we got. All right, let's talk about what I got going on in life and what we're going to bring to the program. Again, Johnny A, we'll bring him in a little bit. I'm going to talk about a concert. We're going to do a little concert review of sorts for the Third Eye Blind and Taking Back Sunday show at Oxbow Commons in Napa, which I don't remember if I bought the tickets when I lived in Napa or afterwards, but I bought it with my buddy Joe and Jackie, his wife, and they decided to, bring some COVID back from Hawaii, so they weren't able to make it. So I needed to scurry, try and find someone to go with, and figure out that whole situation, because they weren't cheap tickets, but it was a tour we were excited to go to. Joe and I had even joked about going to see it down in LA before they announced there would be a Napa date at the end of the tour. This is the very end of the tour, last show. So I need to figure out something to do with tickets. I didn't want them to go to waste ultimately. I didn't care about the money from it or anything, because Joe and Jackie paid for theirs already. So that wasn't a concern as much as, hey, either hopefully going with someone who would appreciate the show, or or selling them so someone else could go to the show as well, right? So I went through different alterations. I tapped some people, didn't find anybody to go. Ultimately, I had plans the same day to head out east to Lincoln to go visit a different buddy of mine, Jay, and his family. Kids and I were going to go and hit his pool, do some swimming and hanging and that sort of thing. So my plan was to go east and then go back west and north to Napa ultimately, and go to the show and then come back, right? But my daughter sprung on me, hey, Dad, my friend that I haven't gotten to see all summer wants me to come to the fair with her in Napa. Can I go? I'm like, well, we already have these plans, to go east. I can't take you. So I guess if they're going to pick you up, sure. Trying to be understanding, trying to be supportive. She's 12 years old. And at that point where, these decisions that I make impact her greatly. And she's going to see value in them, and it's going to help our relationship if I try and find a way to say yes rather than shut down all the shit that she brings, and everything that goes on there, right? So I was looking for a way to say yes with the abilities that I had in terms of our initial plans. So eventually, I call up the friend's mom and say, hey, okay, here's what we got cooking. If you could pick her up, she could go to the fair with you, and then I'll take her to the concert, because I'll bring her back to my home in Vacaville afterwards, right? Well, the mom was cool with that. She said, okay, she'll pick my daughter up, come all the way out here, pick her up, and then take her back. Super generous. So she, that was the plan. That was the plan initially. And she picks my daughter up. I go to my friends with my son, and we're hanging out at the pool. I call my daughter at like 11:50 in the morning because this was the first time I left her home without me and left the town. So I called to check in, and she said, "Hello." So I woke her up. And before I left, I told her I was turning her phone on and ring so that she'd hear when I called. She could sleep. She was asleep at 11:50 in the morning. I'm like, I don't have those genes. I can't sleep till 6 a.m. So I don't know what to do with that, but I'm like, okay, I called her. She said, thank you for waking her up so she could get ready and be ready when her friends picked her up. And then she went to Napa for the fair. And a little bit later, when I was driving back from my friend's house, I was on the phone with a different friend, and she called me 3 times. And my car does this awesome thing where it actually pushes the person to voicemail if I'm on the other line, but I get this beep, like beep, that notifying me that it pushed someone to voicemail. It's great, so I don't get the choice of whether I can switch over on calls or anything. It just happens to. And so she called 3 times in the matter of like 20 seconds. So I'm like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta answer my daughter. And she's like, Dad, we're not even to my friend's house yet. Can I just stay here, and you can get me after the fair and after the concert, and I'll go to the concert with you. And I'm like, okay. And I had already sold 1 ticket on Facebook Marketplace, and after being scammed by someone else on Craigslist, I messed with the scammer, and because their email reply had said sent from my iPhone, but the text was green, and so I was like, I know you don't have an iPhone, and your email that you tried to send me from Venmo, saying it was coming from Venmo, came from an @att.net account. I'm not a boomer. That was my response to the scammer. I'm not a boomer. I know I know what you got cooking. Didn't hear back after that, but I sold 1 ticket on the Marketplace, and then someone else had shown interest for cheaper price on Craigslist, who actually was in Napa, so I sold the other ticket there, and went to the Third Eye Blind and Taking Back Sunday show. So there was a band from Australia that opened the show called Hockey Dad, and they were pretty cool. Dug them. They were good times. I was excited for Taking Back Sunday. I've been a fan since like 2002, something along those lines, right? For eons, 20 years, I've been a fan of that band, and I love their first album that they have out as well. And so, it's always a good time to see Taking Back Sunday. Adam Lazar's vocals are not what they used to be. They are just not great, let's just say. And it was not their top-notch performance. Phoned it in a little bit as well. It was a one-off. It wasn't a headline show or anything. So there were some challenges with that. But I'm still Taking Back Sunday fan, so I'll have a good time during their set, which I went to again. I went to the show solo. And so I watched them, and I want to play a song from Taking Back Sunday that takes me back to my youth, about 20 years. We're going to play some music on this podcast, so let me preface that as well throughout the podcast. So let's play a song from Taking Back Sunday. This is Cute Without the E, cut from the team from their set at Oxville Commons in Napa. Your lipstick is gone, it's all burned. I know exactly what goes on. Everything you're getting, everything that you want is present. My finger on the trigger. Face down across your floor. Face down across your floor. that was cute without the E, cut from the team by Taking Back Sunday. And so continuing on, I'm going to talk about Third Eye Blind a little bit, but I want to save their music for later on in the program so we can get to our guest. Third Eye Blind, I haven't seen them since like 2001. I think like probably around the time I was graduating high school, to date myself. Yes, intentionally dating myself there, I guess. Which, by the way, I saw a notification about a reunion for my class and classes around mine, in high school. And I was texting with my buddy Joe, who graduated the year after me from the same high school. And I was like, I'm not going if you don't go. I'm like, I just don't have any interest. If there's anybody that I want to still talk to, I have a way to get a hold of them. But really, there's no one from high school that I need to get in touch with, old friends and everything. Okay, sure. I guess I don't know. I leave the past in the past. And those that I care about and that are important to me are in my life right now. And so he's like, I'm not going to that. So I'm like, well, I'm not going either. I do not have an interest in putting myself in that situation for a reunion. So I'm gonna go ahead and miss that one. All right. So Third Eye Blind, saw him in 2001 at Concord Pavilion, I want to say, and it was, I remember that being a good show, that they put on. I remember Stephen Jenkins running through the crowd and playing, halfway out in the crowd, some song that they had, and it was a fun show. I haven't seen them since then. Heard a review from my buddy Jay while we were chatting that they were not great when he saw them 10 years ago, but that was probably during a point when he was intoxicated. The lead singer was intoxicated. Could have been. I didn't have high hopes, but I was like, hey, let's go enjoy this show. And so I was able to sneak down into the VIP section and get up close to be able to take some pictures, record some videos. And so we're going to play a couple of songs later on in the program from the Third Eye Blind set. It was actually really, really good. I enjoyed their set. I tried to listen to some of their newer albums, leading up to it, but I didn't connect. I didn't learn them or anything going into the show. I just enjoyed the show for what it was. And the songs that I knew from Third Eye Blind, the hits, right? They put on a really freaking good show. I enjoyed it. It was solid. And so we'll get back to that a little bit later. Right now, I think we should go ahead and bring in Johnny A. And hear a little bit about his career. Here's my interview with Johnny A. Hey, Johnny A, how you doing?
Steve, how are you?
I am good. I'm good. How's your day treating you so far?
So far, so good.
All right, it sounds good. And it looks like I found you in your studio. Where are you based out of?
Just north of Boston.
Ah, very cool. And you grew up in Boston, right?
I did. I'm a North Shore rat. I grew up 5 miles. I was born 5 miles north of Boston, in a city called Malden, Massachusetts.
Okay. I lived in Boston for the first year of my life. I don't have a lot of memories of it, but
I wouldn't think you would, Steve.
but I was there, and that's what matters, right? So, very cool. It looks like you're working on some tracks in the background. You're deep in the middle of doing some recording.
I am. During the lockdown, I got together with two of my old friends that are Beatle fanatics like myself. The drummer from the Jay Giles Band and Joe Perry Project, and the bass player from John Cafferty's band, Beaver Brown, and we recorded 21 Beatles songs, kind of reimagined them instrumentally. Sorry about that. That's an
alarm to do an interview.
Let you know that I have an interview with you.
You have an interview. You're busy right now. Yeah.
So we recorded 21 Beatles songs, and I've been working on them and trying to decide how to put them out, if to put them out or what. They came out great, but navigating the recording business these days is a lot different than it was 20 years ago, so.
Yeah. Well, when you do a project and it's entirely like a tribute to a band like that, tell me about like the approvals. I mean, this might be too inside baseball, but like what goes into being able to release a full album of Beatles music, for example? What does that look like?
Well, it's not really, you don't really need approvals because the stuff is published and it's not being married to video, it's just recording. So anybody can really do it. You just have to pay them what they call a mechanical license,
Hmm.
which is a standardized fee for the use to the publisher. And really, that's it. We just went about it as a labor of love, really a passion project for us. We don't expect to really tour with it. It's just we all have our own solo careers that we do. Mine is like what I'm doing on the West Coast here at Yoshi's, a solo
Yeah.
thing, and but we're doing regional shows and local shows, and some stuff. If it's affordable, we'll go out. Like, in other words, we are doing Justin Hayward's cruise in February, cruise to the Blue. I think it goes out of Miami, and I don't know where it's going to, but because I never get off the boat, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but we're doing, if it's financially feasible, we will go do out of our region. But right now, it's basically New England area, New York, maybe as far as Philly, stuff that we can kind of drive home to because we're all based in Massachusetts, Rhode Island area.
Yeah. So I do have a lot of questions about the Beatles stuff. I mean, that's really super interesting to me. So you have from A to Beatles. Is that the same guys that you're working on this project with?
Yeah, the Fermata Beatles. I mean, the show that I'm doing at Yoshi's is a solo show.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's me and my guitar, and it's a kind of a technology based show where I don't play the tracks, but I am doing live looping. And I've been studying looping for quite some time, and I've been really delved into it pretty heavily. I started doing this touring maybe 2 years before the lockdown. It's been pretty successful, and I enjoy it. The From A to Beatles project, like I said, is the guys that recorded the project are the guys that are doing the live project. It's a
Got
trio,
it.
and it's not really so much a tribute as it is, although we are paying homage to the Beatles. They are my favorite group of musicians, but it's kind of a more of a reimagining of their music instrumentally because there's no vocals involved. So it's almost if you think, Johnny A by way of Hank Marvin and Chet Atkins does the Beatles. So it's kind of
Sure.
something like that with a little bit of Jeff Beck thrown in.
Yeah. So with both projects, as you pointed out, you don't have vocals, but you're like speaking through the guitar, through your instruments. So tell me about how you find that connections with the songs and to be able to express your voice in that manner.
Well, I think the path started for me, as an instrumental artist trying to be a guitarist as a vocalist. It started way back because I was a singer originally until I got a very bad case of laryngitis and lost my voice. And then when my voice came back, was not able to sing in the register of the meat and potatoes of where a male vocal would be. I have my
Hmm.
falsetto, I have my baritone, but I don't really have that midsection. So I had to find a way to be able to suggest the melodies on my instrument. And I crafted that and try to be emotive, and so that anybody that recognizes these popular songs can kind of imagine the vocals with the way that I promote them instrumentally. It's not unlike, although it's not a retro thing, but it's not unlike guitarists of the late 50s and 60s that were guitarists as vocalists. Case in point, people like Hank Marvin, people like Chet Atkins, people like Les Paul. So it's kind of in that era.
Yeah. Did you ever have a chance to meet Les Paul?
I did. I was friends with Les Paul and got the chance to sit in with him several times, and actually was honored to be asked to play on a tribute album by the Les Paul Trio after Les passed. I also played at his 100th anniversary party in Manhattan, um, with a bunch of great guitar players like Neil Schon, Joe Bonamassa, Warren Haynes, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Steve Miller. It was a great event, but I got a chance to play. I was asked to play Sweet Georgia Brown, which was the very last song Les ever performed live. And from what I was told, I'm the very last artist that sat in with Les before he passed.
Oh, that's incredible. What was that experience like?
Well, Les was just a very generous soul. He was very encouraging, um, very complimentary. He loved music. He loved musicians, and he was just very generous with his time. And I enjoyed my relationship with Les.
Yeah, yeah. And so tell me, I want to go back. I want to go back to kind of when you were a kid and kind of get a feel for the dynamic in your household because I know no one in your family was like musically inclined, really, right? You were the first there. So, what music was on in your house, and how did you find music yourself?
Well, my dad was he was a big band guy. He loved Count Basie, he loved Benny Goodman. He loved a lot of that swing stuff. Dorsey's and all that stuff. And my mom was a big fan of the music of the day. She loved blues music. She loved popular music. She loved all the stuff when I was coming up. She loved Jimi Hendrix. She loved the Beatles. She loved all the music of the day. And my ethnicity is kind of, I guess, Middle Eastern because I'm Greek. I'm 100% Greek, and there was always a lot of Middle Eastern, Syrian, um, Greek music going on in the house. So a lot of that great improvising clarinet music and oud and bouzouki and all these just great stringed instruments with all these like microtonal scales and things going on. So, um, and if you know anything about Mediterranean people, they're pretty expressive and they're pretty, they really personify life. So there would always be these great parties going on at my Uncle Vic's house, and this music would be blaring by, all these, like I said, Middle Eastern artists, and there'd be belly dances, and there'd be, all this stuff going on. So music was always there in a heavy way, but not from the standpoint that anybody in my family played music. It just kind of got morphed into me through osmosis of listening to all this stuff, whether it be big band, whether it be, like I said, Syrian music, Greek music, Middle Eastern music, uh, blues music, and then the music of the day. I grew up divorced parents when I was 4. My grandmother and my grandfather immigrated from Greece. He ended up having a luncheonette in Medford, Massachusetts. My mom would work there on Saturdays. Basically, that's where my babysitting thing was when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I'd be at the luncheonette, and it was at a time when the counters of the luncheonette, every, let me say, 2 stools would have like a jukebox stanchion, and you could
Yeah.
put, money in and play the music of the day, and they would just feed me coins and basically pacify me for the 6 hours that I was there, and I'd be listening to Little Richard, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Everly Brothers, who I was a huge fan of, and just all that, Buddy Holly, all that stuff. So we're talking about like 1957 or something like that. So very, very early on, I was embossed, with this musicality of all different types of stuff. I was a drummer first. I grew up playing drums from age 6 to maybe 11, and then switched over to a guitar when I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. But it was all that stuff early on, listening to Louis Bellson and Buddy Rich and Sandy Nelson, and and just having a love and a fervor and a passion for all kinds of musicalities. I mean, I'm not really like, I'm not like a rock guy, I'm not a jazz guy, I'm not a country guy, but I love all kinds of music, and I love popular music. I'm not a jazz snob, I'm not a blues Nazi. Anything that's good, I like. If it's good, I like it. Maybe
Yeah.
opera, it might be the exception.
No opera for you. Got it. Okay.
Well, obviously
Yeah.
I appreciate it, and I think there's some great stuff, but I have to be able to kind of sink my teeth into it. And a great country song with people like, Buck Owens or James Burton playing the guitar, or, listening to some Chet Atkins. And then, I just was into a lot of different stuff. I grew up listening to, like I told you, the early rock and roll stuff, and then got heavily entrenched into British invasion stuff, and then kind of graduated to British blues with Cream and Clapton and Jimi Hendrix, who was not British, but was part of that British blues explosion, and early Fleetwood Mac. And then I got into prog rock with people like Yes and Genesis and Gentle Giant and Michael Urbaniak, and Chick Corea Return to Forever with Bill Connors and Mahavishnu Orchestra. And then got into, there was the fusion stuff. And then, got into jazz guys like Wes and Kenny Burrell and Pat Martino. And, it's just my musicality, my taste for great music is just there. It doesn't really matter what it is. I have a
Yeah.
love for guitar because I happen to be passionate about the sound of an electric guitar. I love the sound of a pure electric guitar.
Yeah. And so you toured for like 20 years as a trio band, and tell me about, like, I mean, that experience for you, and kind of where you found that decision for yourself to go solo, to be able to express yourself, by yourself on stage.
Well, the solo trio thing came as a result of leaving after 8 years with Peter Wolf from the Giles
Yeah.
band. And like I said, while I was on the road with Wolf is when I got that bronchial infection and that severe laryngitis. I was always a lead singer until I got that laryngitis. And when I came out of that band with Wolf and I started my solo career, I made that first record in '99, sometime Tuesday morning. Um, the result of going instrumental was the fact that I couldn't sing, and realizing whoever delivers the melody is the sound of your band. So
Yeah.
whether it's Mick Jagger, Peter Wolf, Steven Tyler, Bruce Springsteen singing, or whether it's a guy like Booker T playing the keyboards, or Kenny G playing the saxophone, Chris Body, whoever that is, whoever's delivering the melody is the sound of your act. Doesn't matter how great the musicians are, and you can't underscore how great it is to have a supporting cast around you, but at the end of the day, it's whoever delivers the melody is the sound of your thing. So I just realized at that point that I couldn't really put my eggs in some lead singer's basket, and I had to kind of try to see if I could discover my own voice through my instrument. And that's how that journey started in '99.
Yeah. And tell me about working with Peter Wolf. What was that experience like for you,
Oh,
and
he
how
was
did you?
great. I mean, Pete is a character. He's been through it all. He's seen it all. He knows a lot. He's a very musical guy. Um, Encyclopedia of past musicalities, which I learned a lot from. Master at the stage, master at giving an interview. I was fortunate enough to be his sidekick on a lot of these radio interviews and television interviews, because he would need someone to accompany him, and I would be there playing guitar while he sang or played harmonica and directed the interview. And I learned a lot on how he was able to control the interview. And it's very important because you really want to get out what you want to get out in a way, and frame it the way you want to frame it. And he's just a master. He's a master showman. He's a master
Yeah.
showman, so.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier you're going to be playing Yoshi's. I know you're also playing Sweetwater, No Valley. I mean, those are a couple of cool venues here in the Bay Area. You played Yoshi's in the past. Tell me about kind of going back to Yoshi's, your experience there, and also, like, from a Bay Area perspective, what venues do you like to play? What's your favorite place to play in the Bay Area?
Well, I do love Yoshi's. I've been playing there for quite some time now, and probably, I would say, for, I don't know, maybe close to 15, 20 years. I guess I go back there every year, and I love it because the staff is respectful. They treat an artist like an artist. The audience is respectful. It's a real listening room. I've played there in all combinations. I played there with my trio. I played there when I was touring with the Yardbirds. I've played there several times as a solo act. Um, it's just always it's always comfortable and always respectful. I guess is, I feel like an artist when I walk in the room, and the way I'm treated by the staff and the management and the audience. And when you're on the road and you're doing these one-nighters, and the travel days are long, and you don't sleep well, and you don't really eat great, and crazy schedules, it's nice to go into a room where an artist feels like an artist.
Yeah,
Um, so I do love going back to Yoshi's. There's places like that across the country that I really love to play. The Triple Door in Seattle is another room, and MIM in Phoenix, Arizona, and there's several places. But Yoshi's is a great room. The Dakota in Minneapolis, and there's a lot of rooms. But Yoshi's is quite a special room.
for sure. Tell me the feeling when Steve Vai calls you up and offers you a record deal. What was that like for you?
Well, that was quite interesting because that first album, Sometime Tuesday Morning, I put that out independently, and it was selling well, and it was getting local and regional airplay. And I had kind of maxed out what I was going to be able to do on my own. I mean, I was a small guy. I made the record on a shoestring. I promoted it myself. Um, and it was at a point where to take I was very fortunate in 2000 or 1999 or 2000, 2001 when that record launched. I was very lucky that there was an independent radio format called AAA radio, and it was able to get artists like me on. I mean, people that were coming up at that time. I remember on those stations were myself, John Mayer, Brad Paisley, the guy that did Babylon. What was his name?
Oh, David Gray.
David Gray,
Yeah,
and artists of the like,
yeah,
maybe Joan Osborne, people like that. And a bunch of them broke out to be really big. Case in point, Brad Paisley. Case in point, John Mayer. David Gray had a huge hit. I kind of kept myself, I was kind of in that boutique level because I'm an instrumental artist. So instrumental artists don't really have the same kind of commercial appeal as a vocalist. But I was able to get a number one song across the country, and I did get a call from Steve Vai, and I was coming home from a rehearsal, and it was on my birthday. I think I remember. I think it was on my birthday, or either Thanksgiving or on my birthday, and I had a voice message from Steve Vai. I don't even know how he got my number, but he called and he said, "Hey, this is Steve Vai," and I'm like, "What?" Uh, and he said, "I got a copy of your record, and I really loved what you're doing. I heard Wichita Lineman, and I must have played it 20 times in the car. And could you give me a call back? I'd like to talk to you about re-releasing your record nationally and internationally." And I'm like, is this a joke? Although I didn't recognize the voice, so I didn't think it was a friend playing a joke on me.
yeah.
So I called him, and we had a nice conversation. And it's an interesting lesson on not judging a book by its cover. Obviously Steve is a mega talented musician, great composer, great artist, great musician, great visionary in what he does. But me, I wouldn't think that he would have any interest in my version of something like Wichita Lineman, which is slow, melodic, melancholy. He's a very aggressive guitarist, a lot of notes, big production. My production was simple, was spacious, um, and the I probably still have the voice message somewhere, but the passion that he had for my version of that song, it taught me a lesson that what you see is not always what you get, and I was thrilled because obviously he was iconic in the guitar industry, had a label that was enabled me to go from a regional level to an international level. That record went on to sell, I don't know, 160, 170,000 albums. then he offered me a record deal, and we put out Get Inside, the second album, which I got a Grammy nomination on one of the songs on that album. And it launched my career from, Peter Wolf was the guy that took me from being a local guy and got me to be on a national stage by, I co-produced that record Long Line on Warner Brothers with him,
Yeah.
which came out in '96, and we toured internationally. So it took me from a local level as a guitarist to a national and somewhat international level as a guitarist and my name. And then Steve Vai came along and took me from being a local regional recording artist to an international recording artist. So, you never know why these things happen or how they happen. And, if it was now and that record came out, it probably wouldn't happen. But, stars aligned and timing is everything. And there was a format called AAA radio station, which gave my song a leg up. And, I was fortunate for the things that came along in my life when they did.
Yeah. And how much? So how involved was he after that call? After he kind of
Oh, he was
greased
very
wheels and get.
involved. He was very involved throughout the whole Sometime Tuesday Morning campaign. And because he wasn't very actively touring at that time, he was pretty much a record company executive at that point. And then when we did Get Inside, the regime within the management of the record company, Favored Nations Entertainment, changed. And also, Steve got more involved with personally touring and putting out records. So he was not as hands on with the label. And consequently, the day to day stuff changed from
Yeah.
Sometime Tuesday Morning to Get Inside.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I want to go back to kind of your writing process a little bit and get and understand a little bit about kind of your process as you're writing your own music, right? So being a musician that again doesn't have the vocals, what I read was you've written some of the songs you write, and I don't know if it's all of them, but a couple of examples I saw were "Bundle of Joy" and "Ignorance is Bliss." Like you'll write those with lyrics and then strip the lyrics out of them. And then kind of bring the music forward. So is that a normal process for you? Is that like,
Well, those songs that you mentioned, like, for example, Ignorance is Bliss, um, Bundle of Joy, which was also called, originally was called, the title was If I Didn't Have You, and a song like Sway a Little, which was originally called Fine Way of Showing It. Those were vocal songs that I did in previous incarnations with other bands,
okay,
my own bands. The writing process for me is always about melody pretty much first. It's not
yeah,
really even about a chord progression yet. And I usually write very lyrically because I love popular music. A lot of people think pop is a bad word, but pop is popular. And I don't know who doesn't want to be popular.
you're right.
Any artist that says they don't want to have commerciality and not be popular is full of shit.
Do you want to sell records or no?
You want
Okay,
to
you
sell
don't.
records, you want people at the venues,
Yeah,
you need to make enough money to fight another day. Um, so my music has always been accessible, but not because I'm chasing accessibility. It's just that's kind of what's ingrained with me. I grew up listening to the Everly Brothers and Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly and the Beatles and the Stones and the Animals and the Kinks, and so that was the first music that I think made a lasting impression on me. And yes, influence in my playing has been garnered from everybody from John McLaughlin to Bill Connors to Robert Fripp to Steve Howe to Jimi Hendrix to Jeff Beck. All those people are in what I do. There's no denying it, and I don't want to deny it. They gave me some fantastic guitar lessons, but at the end of the day, it's melody and arrangement that is kind of paramount for me. So when I write music, I kind of grab, the Beatles are like my high benchmark to me,
of
you
course.
know, in production, in arrangement, in composition, in harmony, in imagery. I mean, when you take a band that can go from "I Want to Hold Your Hand" to "I Am the Walrus," I mean, it's like, what?
Yeah.
So I kind of always look to them, and I always Not that I think I achieve it, but I always think like, okay, well, what would George Martin do? What would John Lennon think here? What would Paul McCartney say to this? So, and since I originally was a lyricist and a singer, my melodies are, I always try to have them be singable. Like I could, even though there are no words in the later albums, and even some of the things on Sometime Tuesday Morning, yes, some of the songs on Get Inside were vocal songs that were adapted to instrumental. But as I go forward and accept the fact that I'm not a singer anymore and I'm an instrumental artist, I still construct my melodies and songs as if someone was singing them, whether it's Paul Rodgers or Paul McCartney.
Yeah. And a lot of your writing you do while you're driving, which is also interesting to me. So is that like listening to other music, or is that like you're just silent? Like where are you in the zone when you kind of
When
when
I
that
drive,
hits?
I'm usually by myself, and I don't usually have the radio on. And driving to me is kind of a sanctum. It's like it's just I kind of zone out, and
Yeah.
a melody will come in my head. And I used to have a little cassette player with me, or a little DAT player at one time, and now you have iPhones, so which is great. So you can just put on a phone recording and hum a melody, so you
Yeah.
just don't forget it. And my process with the melody is I will come up with a melody, and then when I get home, or if I am at home and I'm coming up with a melody, I'll grab my instrument, which is a guitar, and I will play the most immediate chords that come around to that melody, the most simplest chord progression that'll come along to that melody. And then I will try to extrapolate on that and substitute chords. So maybe the initial chord was a G chord, let's say, but maybe I'll, instead of doing the melody and do it with a G chord, I'll do a B minor chord or something like that, or a D suspended chord or something to make the melody sound more interesting. So that's kind of the process. And I just hack away until I find what pleases me. I think I have a
Yeah.
good ear. I think I have uh, a good aptitude for knowing what a good melody and harmony is. And usually, if I feel like if I like it, someone else will like it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure many have. I mean, you have your signature guitar, right? So I mean, I mean, getting that benchmark is obviously a pretty solid milestone towards towards your career.
It doesn't suck.
No, no, I don't think so. Yeah. Tell me about the Yardbirds, your time with the Yardbirds. What was that experience like for you?
The Yardbirds originally called me in 2014, I believe, asked me to tour with them. I wasn't available to do it. I was touring. I had a solo tour already booked, so I couldn't do it. Their dates overlapped my dates exactly, so I said I can't do it. I couldn't really burn the promoters, and tickets were already on sale for my shows. And then they hired Earl Slick, who played with Bowie and John Lennon and a bunch of other people. Um, and they were going to tour, and Jim McCarty, the founding member, had to cancel the tour for, I think, medical reasons. And then they never did a show together. Actually, they never rehearsed with Earl, because I had met Earl when I was finally did tour with the Yardbirds. And I got a call again in 2015, and I was already starting another tour, but I was able to move my dates for them. And they asked me if I would do the tour. I did, and I ended up staying with them for 4 years. I think we did a couple hundred shows, and that was a great experience for me because my favorite band outside of the Beatles growing up was the Yardbirds, especially the 1965 version of the band, which had Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
I think that was a crazy, um, what's the word I want to use?
Like,
Energetic, passionate, experimental, um, great band. And Jeff Beck was just brilliant in that band. and I just learned a lot from listening to Jeff Beck on those Yardbird records. So I think when I got the chance to sit in his chair and do 4 years of touring with them, I kind of knew the catalog, even though I never played in cover bands that played Yardbird songs pretty much. I think we might have done one or two. I just knew the catalog, but more than knowing the catalog, the attitude of that band and the way Jeff played in that band was kind of ingrained in my wonder years of learning how to play guitar. It
Yeah.
started with the Beatles when I was about 12 years old, but then the Yardbirds came along in '65. It wasn't so much the Clapton Yardbirds or the Jimmy Page Yardbirds, it was the Jeff Beck Yardbirds. So at 65, I was born in '52. So it's in '65, I was what, 12, 13 years old, or
13,
whatever
yeah.
that was, 13 years old. So it's when I was to the point of, it was just after the point of picking up a guitar and kind of learning how to play to the point where I actually had a little bit of facility and understood what I was listening to. So that was I call those my Wonder Bread years, you
Yeah.
know. And that band and he was a very big part of that for me.
And I'm sure you talked to Jim about what, an influence, that band was, from your youth as well, right?
Yeah, and I've
All that
spoken to
time.
Jeff about that as well. I've
Yeah.
had the opportunity to play with Jeff and meet Jeff several times actually. Um, so and he still pushes the envelope. He's probably, I would have to put him up there with one of, if not the kind of greatest rock guitar player of all time. And there's a lot of great guitar players, and you can judge them on different criteria. But as far as a guy that's had a 50, 60-year career pushing the envelope of his playing and changing the game for players, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find another guy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So kind of as we went out here, we started talking, about Boston and being from Boston. But you received kind of great accolades from your community, really, in terms of winning the Boston Music Hall of Fame, being entered into there. Tell me about that experience and what that means to you, being from Boston.
Well, I mean, well, first of all, it was unexpected, because I've always kind of been a black sheep and an underdog, and I was never really, in the day when I was coming up, I was never really the big headlining act in my area, all through the '70s and '80s. Yeah, I had some great bands and we played the scene, but I was never the guy that would sell out the big, 600-seat room or anything like that. And my career really came late. It wasn't until I was in my 40s that I got a real break and actually became a headliner. Like now I'm a headliner in Boston at my age, which is insane. But it's always nice to be recognized, than rather than not recognized. So, I accept the award, and it's great to have that, just like it's great to have the Gibson signature guitar on be involved in these companies like with Fender and Marshall and all that stuff like that, which are iconic brands and brands that you aspire to as a young player. Um, but I mean, I don't know, what does an award really mean? I mean, what does it mean?
It,
I mean, I just really want to play my instrument and write good music, or interpret great songs. And that's another thing. It doesn't matter to me whether I write the songs or I interpret the song. Once I take on a song, whether it be Wichita Lineman or a Beatles song or a Stone song or whoever it is, to me it doesn't matter. Once I kind of put my thing to it and stir it up in my soup and hit puree, it's my song. Yes, I didn't write some of these songs, but I feel like I put enough of an individual stamp on them that I own my version of them. And so to be recognized, that's great. It's always great. You'd rather be accepted than not accepted. And like I
yeah.
said, who doesn't want to be popular? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't change anything with the music or how you're approaching your music, but yeah, but it's, a feather in the cap and then
I
move
mean,
on
let's
and
put
keep
it this
making
way:
music.
I don't get any free meals in any restaurants because I'm a Boston Music Award, inductee. I don't even get a
No.
free cup of coffee, so I still pay for my drinks.
Oh man, you don't just walk down the street of Boston and they roll out the red carpet.
No,
Not so much. Not so much. Well, Johnny, I want to thank you for the time, and
my
I
pleasure,
hope
Steve.
I wish you a lot of luck with the tour, and the future music that you're making. The Beatles, however that works out, I hope they get to hear it. That would be really awesome, and yeah, I appreciate your time.
Okay, my pleasure
Mm.
speaking with you. Thank you for the support.
That was the interview with Johnny A here on Concert Pipeline. And before we get to the final segment on the program, I want to play one of not Taking Back Sunday. I want to play one of Third Eye Blind's songs from their set at Oxbow Commons in Napa this past week. And this is a song that I really enjoyed. Actually, I didn't know it offhand. It seemed kind of familiar, but I didn't really know it, right? But it was a really cool performance. So we're going to share it now. This is a song called Motorcycle Drive By.
Summertime and the wind is blowing outside, and though I just seen I know what I'm doing in the city, the sun is always in my eyes. It crashes through the windows. I'm sleeping on the couch when I came to visit you. That's when I knew that I could never have you. I knew that before you did. So I'm the one who's stupid. This burn, like there's always been. I've never been so alone, and I've never been so alive. Listen to you on a motorcycle drive by, cigarette ash flies in your eyes. You don't mind, you smile. You said the word that doesn't fit with you. I don't believe you, you're so serene. From reading through the universe, your eyes is on a tilt. Took your lesson free, I hope you take a piece of me with you. There's things I would like to do you don't believe in. I would like to build something, yeah. You'll never see it happen. And there's this burn that there's always been. I've never been so alone. And I say, I go home to the coast, it starts to rain. I paddle out on the water. can. Summer dies, its wheels rise. Sun goes down in my eyes. See this one I'm in. Got me coming. Take me home. And I've never been so alone. And I've never been so alive.
Thank you!
Okay, help me out on this one. Help me out on this one.
That was Motorcycle Drive-By by Third Eye Blind here on Concert Pipeline. And that takes us to the final segment on the program, the music news. All right, so we have a couple of stories to wind out the program here. And so here is the first one. It has to do with Kiss. So Gene Simmons says Kiss will continue in ways I haven't even thought of. And the band has been on an extended farewell tour since announcing their retirement in 2018. The longest goodbye that is out there, although some bands are doing that sort of thing. I think Motley Crue might even be still saying goodbye. It's possible, right? So what he says is, in a recent interview, he hinted at a significant extension to the farewell tour, promising that Kiss will take the show to 100 more cities before they finally retire. So if you thought you were seeing Kiss for their last show in your area, you're probably wrong. You got duped, but at least you got to see them perform live again, right? So they're not done. 100 more cities. That sounds like an extra year or so if I were to take the over-under on it, right? And so you could hear the interview on the Let There Be Talk podcast, but he said he anticipates there to be a long future ahead of Kiss even after the original lineup stop touring, and discuss where their last ever show might take place. We don't know if it's going to be in New York. I have good reasons why it should be, but the important thing is when it's the last show, it'll be the last show. He said, Kiss, the touring band will stop, but the touring band, Kiss, will continue in other ways. Okay, so they're going to stop, but they're going to continue. We're going to stop, we're going to continue. Which one is it? Come on, Jane, give us some information. I have no problems with 4 deserving 20-year-olds sticking the makeup back on and hiding their identity. He added, Kiss will continue in ways that I haven't even thought of, but I can conceive of, the Blue Man Group and Phantom of the Opera tours around the world with different personnel. There could and should be a Kiss show, kind of live on stage with effects and everything else, but also a semi-autobiographical thing about 4 knuckleheads off the streets of New York that ends with the last third as a full-blown celebration, a full-on performance. Not with us, although not a problem stepping in every once in a while. So they plan to reschedule their Las Vegas residency, which was canceled last year. So that's what's going on with Kiss. We'll see what happens, and if they identify some youngins to take the throne and call themselves Kiss. Is there an audition process for that? Where do I sign up? All these questions are circling around my head, right? We'll see. All right, Eminem, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg were pictured together in the studio, all famously at the Super Bowl halftime show before, but Marshall Mathers captioned a photo, just a few bros hanging out. And so taking to social media, he shared an image of the three posing in front of a mixing desk and a large set of speakers. No further details were offered, leading fans to speculate over a potential new collaboration. And there's obviously the photo online where you could see that, or I could show you on YouTube, but I'm reading from as well. That shows that they were all in studio together. Snoop and Eminem both guested on Dre's second studio album, 2001, which came out in 1999. A couple years before 2001, and Mathers, of course, appears on the hit "Forgot About Dre" and "What's the Difference." Snoop features on the next episode. They've intertwined many times before, right? So we'll see if we get new music from them all together. Okay, here's an interesting one. Stranger Things star Jamie Bauer shared a brooding new single, I Am. The country and western track is the fourth song released by the man behind Vecna so far this year. For those that aren't familiar just by the name, which I had to look it up even though I watched Stranger Things, Vecna is the weird dude. He's number one in the final season. So you can kind of get a sense. I won't spoil anything beyond that in terms of Stranger Things for those that haven't watched yet. But if you haven't watched yet, sorry, you're behind the game. You need to catch up. And so this is his fourth standalone single for 2022. It's a dark and twangy country rock song with its lyrics and accompanying music video, making several references to death and religion. He first made mention of the song during an appearance on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, where he also comedically recited the lyrics to Lizzo's About Damn Time using the voice of his Stranger Things character, Vecna. The video for I Am was helmed by brothers Vicente and Fernando Cordero, who served as director and cinematographer respectively, and sees Bauer playing two roles. And these characters are described as a preacher at the pulpit, delivering an impassioned liturgy and a wayward. Okay, I'm done. I'm done with these big words that I can't pronounce. But there's a video online for it, and you can check that out. So. And he also previously revealed that he listened to Placebo's cover of Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill, A Deal with God, which is very famously intertwined throughout this most recent season of Stranger Things to help him get out of character after playing Vecna. Interesting stuff. I'd be interested to see that live. Porno for Pyros are working on their first new material in 25 years. Their last official release was a one-off single in 1997. And for those not familiar with Porno for Pyros, it's Perry Farrell's old band. And so Peter DiStefano confirmed they started recording songs. The longstanding player took to Instagram overnight, sharing a photo of himself and Perry Farrell with the declaration that they were writing it and recording new music. It's the second time DiStefano has teased new Porno for Pyro's music. Obviously, DiStefano is the one wanting to get that out there. Like, hey, look, I'm working with Perry Farrell again. Yeah, you know him, Jane's Addiction. You know, he made Lollapalooza. He's done a ton of stuff. He's Perry fucking Farrell, right? Hey, I'm making music with him. Check out my music, right? Yeah, of course, he's going to be the one to get after that. So that's pretty cool. And so we'll see when that comes. But the band's last official release was Hard Charger, a non-album single recorded for the soundtrack to Howard Stern's 1997 film Private Parts. It's been a while since they've made new music. Let's just say that, right? Farrell has been working with Jane's Addiction until recently. He at Lollapalooza, I believe, he switched out Porno for Pirates playing instead of Jane's Addiction. Okay. And Rage Against the Machine, I think this is our last story. Rage Against the Machine's Zach De La Roche has reportedly torn his Achilles tendon. They can't catch a break, so to speak. I mean, that's a little play on words there, I guess, right? But there's a photographer named Glenn E. Friedman, a friend of the band, named the frontman's injury in a post on Instagram. But this happened during his early on in their now canceled public service announcement tour. Didn't last very long. I think I talked about this a couple weeks back when I might have noted that, my buddy Joe and I had tickets to see Rage Against the Machine that was scheduled to land in the Bay Area a month after COVID hit. So we did not get to see Rage Against the Machine. The tour was delayed for several years, started back up, and then got canceled. So a couple people got to see them live, I think, before all this cancellation and challenges happened. But it was the second show of the North American leg on July 11th, and he was seen to injure his leg on stage, leaving it for a short time before continuing the performance seated. And so, so this was just came out about what happened to Zach De La Roche. Okay, thinking good thoughts for Zach. Hopefully they can pick the tour up at some point and play some shows. No, that's what the fans want, and it just takes them a long time to do that. That is our show for today. So I want to let you know, next time on the program, we have a band called the Dales. Had a really good chat with them. It was a lot of fun. So looking forward to bringing that to you. We're going to close it out with one more song from Third Eye Blind, set at Oxbow Riverside stage in Napa. And so this is a song, I'm trying to see which one I used. Oh man, I already forgot. It's one of their hits. Oh my gosh, I just totally blanked on it. It is it's the one that goes like this. I don't know. For the life that you've been living in, and if you do not want to see me again, I will I'm totally keeping you along for this ride. Third. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is, yeah, that's right. I totally blanked on the name. That's bad because this is one of their biggest hits. This is Jumper by Third Eye Blind, and that was the best exit to this program ever. So for all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I am Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.